Are you ready to learn something new about your own psychology, about how your brain works, about how to create change? Well, today I'm going to go into more detail about systems. It's a new neuropsychology that we've been talking about all along. And today I want to talk about the first principle in systems. Check it out. Hey, welcome back. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink. And this is my 5 minds. This is where you're learning a new neuropsychology called Psystemology. I like to call it systems for short, and that's systems with a P. Today I want to go over kind of what makes systems systems and kind of help you understand what are the principles behind this new psychology that makes it a new psychology, because most new psychologies today are not new psychologies. They're all the same. And the only way psychology differs one technique from another is that it has its own little set of techniques. And there's a lot of new psychologies today that just basically take all these different techniques and mush them all together, put them all together and say, hey, here's a new psychology. It's not new. There's nothing new about it. It's the same ideas, just with techniques stuffed in there to make it effective, I hope, I think, but it doesn't. So today what we want to talk about is how systems is a different psychology. It's a different approach. And let me start off by telling you a story. The story is a patient named Kimberly. Kimberly came in the week before for her intake. And in her intake, she started talking about her depression. Not super unusual, not super weird, but she started talking about how she's depressed. Well, in this follow-up session, this next session, I always like to check in again. How are you? How was your week? What was going on? And you know what she reported? She reported she wasn't doing that well. And you know why she wasn't doing well? Because of me. I jacked her up. We talked about her depression last week, and we opened these doors and boxes and cans of worms that she just had trouble shutting down again that week. Once she started feeling her feelings, she became flooded and overwhelmed. And that was really her problem. And I think that's a lot of our problems, is that we either don't feel our feelings, we stuff them away, we bury them, we put them in the cans and boxes, or we open those cans and boxes and we become flooded by them and we become overwhelmed by them. And to be honest with you, most psychology believes that that's the answer. The answer is to open up all these cans of worms, spill it out, and let patients kind of work through it. The idea is that the only way out is through. You've got to go through massive amounts of pain to feel better. I don't think that's true. And in fact, there's one psychology I can think of right now, DBT. They even have a technique, get this, where you take some ice, you put it in your hand, and you squeeze it. And you just hold that every day. You practice holding that ice, let it burn, let it burn, let it burn. And what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to teach you tolerance. It's supposed to teach you how to endure the pain. So when you're feeling your upset, when you're feeling your emotions, you've somehow built this endurance about you. To me, it's absolutely ridiculous. Really? You got to feel worse to feel better? For most people, it's not worth it. And for most people, they don't go to therapy because of that. Well, systems is different. And let me show you how. One of the major underlying tenets, the basic foundations of systems says this: you are not your psychology. That's not who you are. How weird is that, right? You're not your psychology? How is this a form of psychology if you're telling me I am not my psychology? Well, you're not. And in fact, I want to make this extra statement. I want to say that as long as you own your psychology, as long as you identify with your psychology, as long as you connect to your depression, anxiety, stress, fear, whatever it is that you feel like is broken in your own psychology, you're never going to get better. You can't get better. Because every time you get into those feelings, you're stimulating those feelings. You're actually building neural pathways in your brain. You're reinforcing neural pathways in your brain. There's a better way. And the better way is to understand, first off, that you are not your depression. You're not your anxiety. You're not your stress. You're not your fear. You're not even your anger. Do you have all those things? Sure. Do I want to deny that those are going on? No. Those are really things. Those are things that are disturbing you and causing you dysfunction in your life. But they're not you. They're not you. Think about it this way. You're driving a car. You're in this car, and all of a sudden, you feel one of your tires go out. Or you're driving your car, and all of a sudden, you run out of gas. Well, in the vehicle, driving, you're going to get really clear what's wrong. You're going to get really clear that something is broken, for sure. But here's the truth. You're not going to fix anything as long as you're in the car. For you to fix something, you have to get out of the car. For fix the tire, to get more gas, to do whatever you need to do to get that car running again, you're not going to do it from inside the car. You need to get outside the car. The same thing is true with your emotions, with your feelings, even your thoughts, even your compulsive behaviors. All of it's the same. You have to disconnect from it in order to heal it, in order to address it. Einstein was not talking about psychology, but he was talking about truth, and he was talking about theoretical physics. And what he said was, you can't solve a problem. It's impossible to solve a problem if you're in the same mentality, the same psychology that formed the question. Yes, this part of you saw there's a problem, saw something was wrong. But his theory was, in this mindset, you can see what's wrong, but in this mindset, you cannot see how to fix it. You have to pull yourself into a different mindset. Now, did he define what that different mindset is? Not really. But he did talk a lot about how creativity, far more important than intelligence. I think that's what he was talking about. We have to get ourselves in a different space, a more creative space, to be able to solve the problems. So one of the big things I want to do in teaching people systems is I want to teach them to see, learn to see without being. Seeing without being is really essential. I got to see my depression. I can't put it in a box. I can't stuff it away in a jar. That's not going to cure my depression. I got to see my depression. See it for what it is and where it comes from. What are the issues around it and behind it? But I can't be depressed. I can't be my depression. Because if I am my depression, I'm going to go into a mental state, a new mental state of hopelessness, despair, powerlessness, all my feelings of not enough. All of those are going to emerge when I enter into that depressive state. So I have to see that depressive state, but not be that depressive state. Here's the cool part. So if I'm not my depression, if I'm not my anxiety or rage, what am I? You and I are consciousness. We're the observer. The highest brain, the fifth brain that we've always talked about is Connie, your conscious mind. When you are in your conscious mind, you are able to be mindful. You are able to observe, to watch, to notice, to see, but not be. And that state of consciousness is who you are. That is your true state. That is your true character and your true essence. And here's what's so cool about that. Your consciousness is not broken. It's never been broken. It never will be broken. It never can be broken. Your emotions, your feelings, your mind, your body, absolutely. It can be broken. It happens all the time. But not your consciousness, not your awareness. Your awareness is always here, free in this moment. And because it's always here and free in this moment, it's independent. It's independent of all your psychology, your past, your negative thoughts. It's the ability to stand back and look at your negative thoughts, to observe your negative thinking. Isn't that a wonderful message? You are not your psychology. And in fact, what you are is unbroken, unbreakable. What you are is perfect right now. Not damaged, not wounded, not stuck. And so, back to our story about Kimmy. So what I did with her was, as we started talking about, who are you? What are you? Your depression? Are you your anxiety? I know you feel depression, but is that who you are? As we started working through that, we started to practice a little bit of mindfulness. And that's really one of the key elements of systems, is being able to stand back and see the systems going on. Mindfulness can be traditionally used passively, almost like a medication, a calming technique, a relaxing technique, which is good. But in systems, we want to use it a little bit more proactively, a little bit more aggressively, in helping you see the entire systems that are going on in your mind, and then begin to interrupt and change those systems. But the first part is to see your system. Remember, 3 parts to change? You got to see your pattern, then you got to interrupt your pattern, then you can replace your patterns. So I wanted to work with Kim on this first exercise, which is a simple mindfulness exercise, where she can begin to feel who she is as in contrast to her anxiety or depression. So the first thing I had her do was to take a couple breaths to calm herself, to center herself, to quiet the base brain, to quiet the emotional mind, to quiet the thinking mind, the left neocortex, to quiet the right thinking mind, and to allow herself to move up into her conscious mind. And as she moved into her consciousness, I just let her observe. Feel her arms sitting on her lap. Notice her breath moving in and out. Hear the sounds in the room. Hear the things going on around her. And after a few minutes of just practicing being aware, being mindful, being conscious, I asked her to be aware that somewhere inside of her body there was a knot. There was a collapse of energy. I didn't know where, and I didn't even know what it was, but I knew it was there. And I asked her to feel it, find it. It's called the body location. So she started to find the body location of this collapse, and she found it in her stomach. And I said, as you find that feeling inside, that collapse inside, I want you just to be aware of it. Notice it. Stand outside of it and feel it. Is it big? Is it small? Is it basketball, a softball, ping pong ball? Is it smooth, rough, hot, cold, warm? Hard? Gooey? Soft? Light? Heavy? Just to feel it, just allow her to play with it and to be conscious of it. And as she felt it, as she noticed it, I said, I want you to notice how, as you feel it, as you touch it, as you are aware of it, you can feel the difference between you and it. And I wanted her to move back and forth. Become your depression. Become that knot. Become that collapse. Feel it for a minute. Ooh. Ugh. And then pull out of it. And be present. Be conscious again. Be aware. See, but not be. She did that 4 or 5 times, just feeling the difference from being her depression to being her consciousness. And then we took her consciousness and I said, I want you to go inside of your depression, inside that knot, inside that collapse. Because your consciousness is untouched. It's pure and it always will be. It cannot be contaminated. It cannot be broken. You can go into the middle of your anxiety, your depression, your fear, whatever it is, and feel it from the inside. So I asked her to do that. Notice what it was like inside of it. And as she felt inside, she could feel the outside melting, dissolving, relaxing. Feel it? And then I pulled her out of it again. I said, again, feel the difference. You are not your psychology. You're not your depression. She got it. She could feel it. And then it became time for homework. Just like it's homework for you. For your homework, for her homework, I wanted her to practice that week just being aware. Being aware of who she was, conscious, present, mindful, and being aware of her feelings, or her negative thoughts, or her compulsive behaviors. Doesn't matter. Again, it's all the same. But she needs to make that distinction, and you need to practice making that distinction, that you are not your psychology. Again, if you like this video, like the video. If you want to learn more about this systems, the system psychology, subscribe. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and you are watching another episode of My 5 Minds. Take care.